Next up, we have Jaan. He's actually the inspiration in a sense behind this event because he had some friends personally working in Sanghar and in Sindh, and he sort of said, okay, we've got to get together and do something. And he's the one responsible for getting the money back home, so you can interrogate him all you want and ask him exactly where the money is going, how is it going to be used, and he's going to give us a little presentation and tell us about the ground realities. So let's, let Ali come on stage now.
Is sort of facing, and people within our country are facing, and there is a certain commitment that all of us have, perhaps more so if we're from that country, and even if you're not at a basic level of humanity, it's such a catastrophe that has happened. So whatever little we can do is going to contribute in one way or the other. Ayaz asked me to, who is actually the brains behind this and the inspiration, and the Pakistan Society, his entire team, they've actually set this up. I just gave a little idea and I backed away. So he asked me to put some slides on. I don't like talking with slides, but I just decided nonetheless. And so you have this sort of title, A Joyless Eid for some. And it's pretty self-evident what it means. And just go to the next slide. I think just a little background to the entire thing. I don't think I need to spend too much time on it. As you guys know, the floods this year were on the back of a large-scale devastation that happened in 2010. According to Kofi Annan, according to Ban Ki-moon and the UN, it was a bigger catastrophe than the Haiti earthquake, as well as the tsunami put together, in that it affected 20 million people directly during this entire, the 2010 floods. And to think that a country like Pakistan, short on resources, short on manpower, institutional scarcity, lack of will perhaps even, that we were barely able to achieve anything in 2010, and along came 2011, in which another series of floods came in to compound what was already going on. So in a sense, it's really not up to me to actually explain what's going on. Everyone actually knows. We can't even imagine the kinds of hardships that those people are going to be in. And therefore, I think I just have to spend very little time. You can check out those stats. Some might agree, some might disagree. Usually stats are underreported. And I think one way of looking at stats is to just shock you. But on the other hand, each and every single one of these people is an actual human being. So, when we add people up, we tend to forget that it's actually each and every life, a single life that's completely been torn apart by this devastation. So these are just some of the areas that were badly affected. Could you just go to the first slide? Yeah, just next. Yeah, so close to 5 million people were affected this year. Sindh was primarily mainly affected. And so one of the things that happened this year was that in 2010, one part of Sindh was flooded and the rest of it had been saved. This year, the other part was affected primarily. So actually, most of Sindh was affected by the floods, if you combine 2010 and 11. Just next slide. As you guys know, there was the FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, has declared a food emergency in Sindh. Sindh is usually for an agricultural area, an area with a lot of food production, but as a result of the floods, most of it was destroyed. And on top of that, obviously, once sometimes we think that something is bad for everybody, and somehow if you're going to help, you'll be able to bring everyone out of this misery if you help people. Unfortunately, where there is misery for a lot of people, there's actually profitability for some people, which actually compounds the misery for the rest. So as expected, with the food shortages, there have been major scarcities, there have been major hoarding, all of a sudden the prices of food, which should have been, let's say, we should have gone above 100%, have gone above 500%, 300%. It varies. You know, there's a lot of that actually compounds the problem for the poorest, who actually would have to completely rearrange their lives for God knows how long. Thanks. Basically, the area, that's actually one of the things that we're planning to do with this particular thing, is that we've selected a particular area. I gave the idea to my friend Ayaz because I have a certain attachment with that area because of a certain organization that I worked with, helped with, which is you know, working there for rehabilitating the people. And that's actually the only reason. You could think of any other place and, you know, donate freely and it would be just as useful. The only good thing, if you know somebody in a particular place and you can vouch for it, is that you can be sure that the money might actually go to those people. As you guys know, a lot of you know, as Zahra mentioned earlier, this time around the will has been much less to help people, and part of that actually has to do with a certain idea that most people have, that if they're going to send money, it might not actually reach people because of all the horror stories that you hear about, you know, food aid, all of a sudden, you know, those trucks being looted, and then all of that food showing up at food depots or ration shops elsewhere at 3 times the price. You know, so if you guys take a small area, know people who are within that area and target it, it's actually much better, and it's actually worth the money that you guys spend on it. And that's why we've chosen a particular area within Sanghar. Sanghar is a district, as some of you might know, most of you might know, within Sindh. It has a population, according to the 1998 census, that's the last official census that happened, of 1.4 billion people. Obviously, it's much more now, according to certain estimates, around 6-7 million people at least in the district. The capital is Sanghar city of this particular district, and it has a total of 6 tehsils, which is a sort of sub-districts, and out of those 6, 4 have been badly affected. And we are basically dealing with 2 major, one major tehsil called Sanghar, okay, which is around sort of 12 kilometers from the capital city, and 2 basic union councils. So, I mean, this is a lot of bureaucracy like this. So this is how the bureaucracy divides districts. So you have the subdivision, and within the subdivision, the next is the union council. 2 union councils, Shah and Mia, and basically 2 main villages within them, Shah, Sikandrabad and Satardi. The aim is simple: to focus on rehabilitating around 100 households that were badly affected within that area. The reason for that is, when you're going to be focusing on 100 households, it's something that you can, you know, you can be more precise with to measure the progress that is being made. This is especially important because a lot of government aid that has gone there, actually, there's been, you know, a lot of politics around that, especially Hindu minorities within this area have completely been bypassed, actually, because a lot of them tend to be landless laborers, tend to be underrepresented in any case within the social hierarchy, and 2, especially like, you know, the Bhils and the Kolis, the 2 sort of poorer agricultural castes within Sindh, they've actually been horribly displaced and affected badly. And so part of the reason for doing this is to actually focus on these people, obviously not excluding others, but including them within the people that we will be helping. This is actually a snapshot from Sanghar city, the main city, that was completely devastated during the floods. Obviously, the water is now coming down, and actually the real challenge has really begun actually now after the water has come down, because first it was simply survival, the first stage, you know, you just have to manage somehow to live, but then once the water comes down and things begin to settle, you really have to think about what you're going to do with your life. Are you going to pick up and build it? And that's the stage where these people are right now. I think that's where help is required most urgently. One of the most important reasons for choosing this particular place was, as some of you might know, Sanghar is also home and to a certain gentleman called Pir Sahib Pagoda, who is also you know, part of what a lot of people believe one of the reasons why these things actually, you know, the poverty within that area, and the reason for aid actually not reaching these people, because he's one of the big landlords within Sindh, very famous, also has a sort of religious backing as well, and all sorts of these these big landlords, as some of you might have heard the stories, when the floods happened, there was again an imbalance about who got affected. Most of the big landlords had already sort of made arrangements for themselves to be completely unaffected by it. They'd actually, and there were stories later confirmed, that actually they directed water away from their fields to other areas which were completely flooded. And then, on top of that, once the aid actually started coming in, it was their people, their goons, their hooligans, who were actually looting those trucks and just distributing that aid only to their own constituencies. So that's actually one of the pressures within which these people are operating. There's only two organizations within that area that are actually working. One is an NGO that has actually just started, it's called Helping Hands. There is very little that actually I can tell you about it. Because the organization I worked with and I want to, which is my channel really, through which I want the money to be sent, is an organization called the Sindh Small Growers Association. It's, as the name suggests, an organization of small farmers who work for farmers' rights in terms of giving them better prices for their produce, especially since most of the best land, the best produce is procured already in the hands of the bigger landlords. So it's actually the only organization of the poor people in this area that actually works for their rights. Unfortunately, because of the floods, technically they should be out of business because there's no prices for their products anytime soon. Most of their land has been flooded, so there's very little crop. So what they are doing as a response to that is actually organizing people for demanding their rights and also getting money to rehabilitate people. So far, they worked in the area on these particular households and provided them with the basic minimum necessities such as food, such as shelter. As you guys know, there was a major sort of threat of malaria, a malaria epidemic almost. So these people actually managed to, through the help of our friends like you, actually managed to distribute mosquito repellents on large numbers in this area and actually averted a major malaria outbreak. So they're actually pretty much grounded in that area, and that's one of the reasons why I believe that it would be useful to help this organization. Obviously, it's a small growers association, and it's a poor, organization in the sense that they need money in order to carry out their cause. They have a lot of people under it because of the kind of organization that it is. As I said, if we're focusing on a small group of 100 households, it's much better than just giving money in a larger project. Nobody's claiming that we're going to rehabilitate all of Sanghar. No, we're not going to do that. It's not going to be possible for another so many years, especially because these things cannot happen without the will of the government. And as you guys know, the government is busy doing other things rather than rehabilitating its own people, right? So it has more pressing tasks, obviously. So that's why I've only provided the details of the General Secretary, or contact details of the General Secretary of this area. The other thing is, and you're free to interrogate me, as Zahra said, about how the money is going to be sent, etc., etc. What's even more important is that if you guys feel that this particular channel may not be the best to send the money through, it would be nonetheless important, if you feel like sending money to Sanghar, to actually get in touch with these people, because they would know the local ground reality much better than a lot of organizations, which I don't mean that that they don't have their heart in the right place, which may not know the local context as well as these people who are living there. Okay, so that's basically about it. Thank you very much for your patience, for listening, and I hope you guys can help these people in need. Thank you.